Okay. So, this is going to be just me going over the format basically of example final presentation that you guys would be doing. This is just something I'll whip it up quickly. In the future, I'll probably using older project examples that people have made, just because that'll be a bit more concrete. But this is basically like 8 slides that I quickly came up with of things that you should probably have in your presentation. Okay, let's get going. So, first slide, name what you want to call your project, who contributed to it, and then this note here. This really shouldn't be more than 10 slides. You're going to be looking at maybe around a 5 minute, a little longer than that presentation, nothing super involved or intense. The majority of your work really should be on the code, because that's the main purpose of the assignment. All right. Second slide is basically just covering how your interpretation, your project connects to the theme. I included the theme here in case you forget. And all of you have access to these slides, by the way. They're linked in the Discord. I'll send out another announcement soon with it, with these again. And then, just, yeah, basically how you interpreted the theme, and then basically where you went with this. This also could be used as an opportunity to explain why you chose this specific project. Just so if you have a personal connection, whatever, show why you basically came to this conclusion. Next slide, just where you got your data, how you treated the data, so like what data cleaning things you did, if you did any feature engineering that's potentially interesting, and then what type of model you did. So if you did a decision tree classifier, or if you did an SVM, a neural net of some sort, name that here. And then here, like, explain how the model works. Or in the case of if you used a neural network, give an example of how your architecture was built. So like, I don't know if either of you or any of you are doing neural networks, but basically just saying how many neurons per layer, what dropout you're doing. Just basically just make a graph explaining how the thing trains itself and how it's built. And so if we're going to be looking at like specifically what modeling you're doing, just be sort of general, kind of name it on this slide and then go into a bit more detail here. Think of it as a mini lecture, I guess, similar to what we do, but basically just giving an overview of how the thing works. So if you did something like a decision tree classifier, give an overview of how a DTC would work. Okay, and then results, basically just how your model did, but just accuracy from training, validation, and testing. Other metrics that might be relevant. If they're not super well known, like something more obscure than say like an F score, you might want to explain what those are. But this is basically just reporting your results. Possible issues with analysis, so utilizing the confusion matrix or some other means of analysis. And explaining some issues that you might have run into. So like where you see high amounts of misclassification, other sorts of errors with your model. Because really, I do want this presentation to be a bit well-rounded. You're going to be giving an explanation of what you did. So going into what went wrong, I think is very, very important for you, just in general. You don't want to sweep all that under the rug and just show that you have a very polished thing with 90% accuracy when something is glaringly wrong. And then here, just if you were to hypothetically continue the project, what possible fixes are there for issues that you ran into, or how do you think those could potentially be solved if you were to do this? And then last slide is basically just a space for questions. It doesn't need to be super involved. Again, roughly a 5-minute presentation. The majority of the time, I think, should be spent explaining your model and your results, as well as some errors. And then there'll be a bit of time for questions. But it really also depends on how many people are going to be presenting. I don't have a good gauge on that yet. But I think it should be a decent turnout as well. Okay, so before I keep going with this, do I have any questions? Because we're on the question slide, specifically about the format. You can also send them in chat if you don't want to use your mic.
I don't know if you've mentioned this already, but like, what's a general time estimate for how long this should be?
Presentations roughly 5 minutes or so, maybe a little longer.
Okay.
It depends. I'm sorry if you guys can hear a bit of feedback on my audio. For some reason, it's coming from my speakers, not my headphones. which makes no sense. Let me see if I can go to settings real quick and change that. One moment. Just stop my share and then go to settings. Okay. There we go. What if there are only 2 people presenting? Can you take more time? The presentation should be roughly the same length regardless. Let me just go back to screen sharing this. It's more a question of it is more a question of content that should be in there. Like realistically, it's not 5 minutes per person. It's 5 minutes per group, roughly. It shouldn't be super deep. It's fine if you go a little over. It's not. I'm not going to be holding a stopwatch and then playing music to usher people off the stage when their time is up. But just keeping it roughly brief. If people are particularly interested, what I might suggest doing is like for the last slide, adding a QR code with a link to the Git repo if you're doing something like that, where people can download your code and access it that way. But there isn't really any pressure, I guess, to be really snappy or go and have a lot of time. This should be pretty brief. Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah, I mean, so it's okay though if it's like maybe 6 minutes or something, because
Yeah.
5 minutes might be a little bit short for some of our projects.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to be, again, it's not going to be super stringent on the amount of time that I'm going to be
Okay,
taking for people. As long as it's pretty brief, assuming that we're going to have a decent number of people. I don't want people to get credit out.
Yeah.
Okay. So aside from this, this is the main content for actual submission. What you're going to need aside from just the presentation is going to be your code and is going to be any data sets that you use. I've changed this from originally when I pitched this competition. I also was planning on asking for a write-up of about a page. I don't think that's entirely necessary. I won't really have time to go through that. If I'm really interested, which I am, I'll probably end up just going through people's code and data just to see what they did. A write-up is not necessarily necessary. Your results could probably be disseminated through this presentation. So give me one
Where would we like, let's say we made a GitHub repo?
Yeah.
Where would we send that?
So I want submissions to be through a zip file.
Okay.
I'm going to be putting a Google form on the Discord server in the coming days. I've finished it. It's just I want to put it out. I probably actually put it out tomorrow. For people if they're already done to submit that, and then I'll make a Google Sheets where people can put in some sort of timetable stuff. It really depends on what we have available. But yeah, if you want to do something with a Git repo, what I would suggest is like after this slide, I guess, after slide 8, have a QR code there. If people want to check out your code through a GitHub repo, that would be a really good place to do that.
Last question. This you're like the time that you're giving, because I briefly recall that there's gonna be questions. Oh yeah, I guess it says right here.
Yep.
There's questions at the end. So oh yeah, I have 2 questions actually.
Mhm.
The first is like this time isn't including the questions, I'm assuming, right?
No, I doubt you'll get very many questions. It would probably be, if I had to guess, like just based on how my presentations have gone, the main people you're going to be getting questions from are people who have knowledge about this. So you're going to be getting questions from the judges, probably 1 or 2 around, and then maybe 1 from the audience. So
Yeah.
if you're brief in your responses, it shouldn't be a problem. It's just a question of getting stuff set up.
Yeah, and then lastly, like what's the composition of the judges? Is it just the SCI officers or is it the sponsors as well? Or there's a sponsor, right?
Yes, there's a sponsor. That's how we got the prize pool. I mentioned this briefly in the Discord, but our sponsor is a company named Ignite. They have about 1,000 employees. I'm still in communication about setting judges up. Worst case, there won't be judges and it'll just be a poll from the audience. But
Okay.
But yeah, right now I'll operate under the assumption there will be judges. So make a presentation that's digestible by both experts and people who don't have a lot of experience.
Okay. That's pretty much all I had.
All right, excellent. Yeah, and so no write-up this time. So basically just put all of the information you think is necessary into this presentation. And then for submission, make this a PDF or PowerPoint, something that we can present up front. And then add that to a zip file with your code and whatever data sets you used. It shouldn't be really huge, realistically, but put that in a zip file. And then yeah, send that to the Google form that I'll be putting out in the next couple days, and that'll be it. And then what I'll ask you guys to do is also put in a specific time for when you want to present. I'm gonna like make a few windows. We'll see depending on how many people are submitting. And then we'll figure out exactly when people are going in that order. But yeah, it should be good. Okay. Aside from that, do you guys have any more questions about the other aspects of the competition? And then I'll go into just general office hour stuff if you guys have clarifying questions about 10 days out from when we're submitting. Okay, looks like that is good. Let me end the recording.